Okay, hey guys, what's going on? This is Christopher Bartley here. I guess you know what, Sasha, we're gonna call this designers dialogue or something. I don't know. We're gonna figure out because you're the second designer that I have that I've brought on. And for those of you that don't know Sasha-Shae Weekes, she is an amazing visual design strategist. Listen, I think it's the first time that I've actually heard of this title. Now, we creatives can sometimes develop titles that might not sound uh, popular, but it does get to the heart of what we do. So I love the fact that you have the word strategy in it because
Right.
you know that that's what I like doing. So anyway, for those of you that don't know Sasha though, I want to just read you her bio. She is is a visual design strategist right now residing in New York City. Now, which borough in New York City?
Queens. Woot woot.
All right, she's in Queens, and she loves helping creative and passionate professionals uncover their personal experiences to share their stories with the world visually. And after spending several years as a blogger and social media enthusiast, Sasha now focuses on helping women dig deep to find their unique voice and illustrate their stories' beauty to transform others.
Mhm.
Now, she's also an avid reader. What's your favorite? What's the most recent book you've read so far?
Gosh, most recent book.
Yeah.
Mm, well, I guess I'd say it's a toss up between Story Brand rereading it and gosh,
Okay.
hold on,
Okay.
I don't remember the title of this book.
Is that a story brand? Is that a Joe Signorelli?
No,
Jim
that's
Signorelli?
oh gosh, David Story Brand. Hold on, what's his name? See, I'm
Okay.
over here googling.
cool. Cool. While you're googling that, I love this. I love the organic nature of this already. So, avid reader, quirky, fun-loving soul, and a self-proclaimed fatty foodie. Probably
Yep.
going to talk about some food too. Then,
No.
and while she's a true creative at heart, her foundation rests in knowing that Jesus is the ultimate creator and the one who gives her purpose. So, everyone, I just want you to welcome Sasha-Shae Weekes to the stage, to the platform. She's out here. So, in our first design dialogue that we had, our first conversation, Jesus Polar, he was or is a a brand. It was like a mixture of UX and branding,
Mhm.
and so we at the end we're trying to map out what he did as a brand design manager, and so we probably might do that as well for you towards the end. But this is great because we're going to talk about just your journey. I like storytelling. So maybe we begin with the setup, the conflict, and then the resolution, right?
All
And
right.
so let's talk about this first idea of when you realize, like this aha moment, that you were a designer. When did you realize that?
So I guess I'd say my journey started very young. I mean, as a child, I always loved like, creative stuff, the crafty stuff. Like I've realized my parents were both I guess the analytical side and the creative side. So my mom,
Oh,
had me doing stuff like, oh, you're gonna crochet and you're gonna, paint whatever and do all these little
yeah.
things. So from an early age, I really liked that. And then my dad, he was into doing like the electrical engineering and fusing like random pieces of like electrical stuff and making it become something else. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I guess from that, growing up, I once, of course, we got introduced to the computer. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And from there,
Okay, hold on, pause. So we're the same. We're the same age. When did you get introduced to like having? I remember ours was set up like in the dining area,
uh-huh,
and I think AOL was like one of the first programs that we had for us.
right.
Um,
I feel like the first computer we ever got was
uh,
what is that? You remember Compaq? Those huge Compaq
yes,
used to try to
I
look
think
cool,
ours. I think ours was that too. For me, it was like '97. I
right?
think. I think I was like in the
It
sixth or
was a
seventh grade.
long time ago, but I remember my grandmother bought that specifically
Uh,
for the household, and that was the
yeah,
first
yeah.
computer. And it was just like,
That too, right? Like it was in the central location and everybody had access. You
yes,
remember? So,
it was a lot of
yeah,
people.
yeah. So,
But that from there, I want to say that was my first like, you could do a little thing on here. And then by the time I got into high school or finishing high school here in the States, and then decided, okay, I wanted to go to college. I actually was like, I'm gonna do computer science at first because I was like, oh, I like the technical side of the stuff and whatnot and whatever. But sophomore year is when it really hit me like, I think I actually prefer doing the more, I guess, creative expression of
Mm,
tech. And that's when I
yeah.
decided to do like essentially a visual arts major and
Okay.
explore
Okay.
like all the
Okay.
different pieces. And I
Mm,
guess meanwhile, while I was doing that, the blog, because I had that blog and I was running it, that's when it really solidified that in the
okay.
creative realm, what I really like is to
Right.
do the branding and the website designing and really building all of that together. So
Yeah.
it kind of
Okay.
muddled somewhere in there between those spans of those years
Yeah.
while I was still in college, like doing it. I realized,
Yeah.
like, yeah, I think I much prefer this particular aspect and I want to pursue this.
Okay.
So
So from okay, so when did it start to materialize? In college or in high school?
so yeah, the earliest like come into life of it definitely would be in high
Mm,
school because we all know
okay.
when MySpace and High Five and that type of stuff was still alive
Yeah.
and well.
Yeah.
um I would start to like, oh, let me see what kind of little thing I could put together in Notepad. And then
Uh,
definitely by time college it was, oh, I got introduced to WordPress for blogging and it was a wrap. It was just like, oh, you could do a
okay.
lot of stuff with this. And
Okay.
then that
So
was
this is
really it.
interesting. Okay, this is so WordPress was really kind of the moment that you said, I'm going to, what did you use? Because for those of you that shockingly may not know what WordPress is, content management system for blogging.
Right, right.
What did you do in WordPress? Because I mean, people hear WordPress and they're like, okay, but that's for writing. How did this translate
Right.
into
So
visual design?
So at the time, I guess, this was back at the height of when doing natural hair blogging and that type of stuff was all hot and whatnot. And I really was
Yeah.
blogging my heart away while in the dorm. And for me, of course, I'm like, well, if I'm going to blog, I want it to look proper. So it
Mhm.
kind of started where I was like, oh, well, I need to create the brand for it. And then I need to make sure that
Mm.
my post images are looking a certain way. And then I need to make
Mm.
sure that the site itself is looking a certain way. So it did start as more so just making the blog look decent, look okay.
Okay.
And then from that, I started also tinkering with like PHP, where I'm like,
Ooh,
so
PHP.
yeah,
Ooh,
oh Lord.
that's the daddy side of things. You got into the technical
So
weeds there. Okay.
with
Yeah,
with
yeah.
that WordPress blog, I really had to
Mm,
start learning so many random different things at the time. So of course,
yeah.
whenever issues would come up behind the scenes, I mean, I was the only person running the blog, so I had to figure it out. So it
Mm,
really was one of those things where it pushed me, on the creative side and as well on the dev
yeah.
side, which for me, I love both. So it was just like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, this really helped. But I know when WordPress
Okay, that's
started, they
good.
definitely started as a blogging platform, and over the years,
Yes.
obviously now evolved into like a full. You could do whatever with it.
Right.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And a lot of competition now too. Okay, so we're going to back up a little bit because I think that what we didn't do was clarify what a visual design strategist is. Because you've mentioned, and this makes a lot of sense now because some people may have just assumed it was graphic design.
right.
But when you mentioned WordPress,
Hmm.
as you began breaking it down, I said, "Oh, wait a minute, hold on. You just didn't choose a Sasha.wordpress.com. Now you went into the WordPress.org side of things,
Yep.
pulled that in to like your actual site and
Yep.
then embedded that into the site and then started doing some coding. Okay, so the light bulb just went off for
Right.
me. So let's break down what is a visual design strategist,
Okay. So
your definition, and yes.
essentially why I just called myself that was because over the years, when you say graphic design, I found like a lot of
Mm,
people only limited that stuff to like flyers and like the one-off stuff. And then if
yeah.
you say you're a brand strategist, a lot of people only think about it again, branding and the
Mhm,
actual identity and the system and stuff. And then if you say you're a web
yeah.
designer, well, obviously they're just gonna think it's only the web design. So over the years, I realized, well,
Mm,
I do focus heavily on the visual design, but I do encompass
Mm.
strategy in it.
Okay.
So I fuse them together to say that, essentially I do anything that's visual. So whether that's your printed,
Mm.
printed work, your digital work, your digital experience, all of it together is fused with a very strategic way how we're approaching it. And I
Mm.
kind of just stumbled upon that. I was like, yeah, I like it. It sticks. It's the one thing that feels
Yeah.
like it actually still tells
Yeah.
people exactly what to expect without it being very like, okay, well, I'm kind of confused.
Gotcha. So you are on so I'm on the UX side of things, right? So you are on the UI and the development. Like,
Right.
is it kind of
Yeah, like right
okay?
now more so on the UX, but once I
Okay.
finally get my life and actually really do my
Yeah.
JavaScript like I need to, then I'll
Yeah.
clean
Yeah.
the back end more. But yeah,
Okay.
that's the
Okay.
goal. Because I found
So okay. No, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say I found like, the more you start to want to design stuff, you know how you start thinking of, man, it would be cool if this could do this. And then I've
Yeah.
realized over the years, well, the only way you're
Yeah.
gonna do that is if you know some JavaScript and the languages that you keep running from. So
Mm.
yeah.
Okay. So in your priority right now, so we've got UI. For those of you that don't know these terms, then this video ain't for you. No, UI, user interface. It really it
Right.
really speaks to like the how a thing looks. So for instance, on Facebook right now, the color scheme that they have. For those of you that like to play around with the messenger gradients and all of that stuff, or just even the shape of the buttons and stuff, that's UI. It's
Mhm,
how you are, and that's why it's called user interface.
mhm.
How you are interfacing with it in its kind of like its superficial level. Everything the look.
Right.
And if all of this stuff in Facebook, like right now, if you guys go to your Facebook on the desktop, the rollover buttons, the highlights are all rounded corners. That's very intentional. I don't think that there's any sharp corners in Facebook. So that's what we're talking about when, right, in UI, everything's so bubbly and Now the UX side is also what you've mentioned too. Is how does it work? What is the skeletal structure of this thing? Information architecture. I should know this because I should know more than just that. But like for instance, at the top right now, I'm looking at the home, the pages, the video watch, the marketplace, and groups. Like they intentionally have navigated the bar or created the bar so that it's easier to get to particular things. It's kind of like the skeleton of a website. Maybe it's the muscles. No, it is the skeleton.
Yeah,
It
it
is
is.
the
It's the
skeleton. I think the
skeleton.
muscles is the development.
The skeleton, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The muscles would be like the development. Like,
Right.
okay, you want when
Start
you
a
click on
prototype.
something for it to,
Right.
yeah, for it to animate.
Right.
That's what a developer has to do. You got to learn JavaScript. You got to learn certain things to actually make it work. And then the skin on top of the body would be the UI. So you got these three areas. So what you're saying is that you have now you know what we call this in design world, we call these unicorns, right? Or they would be generalists. So if you had to choose, because you already know unicorns come rare, you might be
Right.
a unicorn, but if you had to choose what you resonate with the most in your journey right now, what
Right.
would that be?
I guess right now it's more heavy on the UI UX for
Okay.
right
Okay.
now. So,
Yeah.
definitely taking into consideration they're doing their brand strategy, the branding, and then the design
Hmm.
front end and, minimal
Yeah.
back end. But I
Okay.
feel like definitely once I get a full handle, 'cause there's like when I tell you there's some ideas in my head where I'm like, oh my gosh, I need this interaction and I need
Yeah.
this, and this site would
Yeah.
be so much better if I just did this.
Right.
Like I just
Yeah.
finished a project recently and I was like, man, if I had known like really known PHP and JavaScript the way
Mm,
that, some of these like theme developers or whatever know,
yeah.
the stuff that I would have been able to do in addition would have been just like, yes.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I know.
So two things. The first one is if you have now, I know when we hand over, especially websites,
Hmm.
bless our hearts, when we
Hmm.
hand them over to clients, sometimes they undo everything that we've
Right,
done.
right.
Ah, and as amateurs, sometimes I still have this amateurish tendency to not screenshot and document and do
Oh,
everything I can before saying, "Here you go." But I need everybody else to know what it looked like
right.
before and after, so that when you switch it up, I at least in my portfolio can say, This is what it was like
Right.
until they decided to, just jack everything up. So that being said, do you have a sample in your portfolio? I know portfolio is like the worst word for a lot of us. Like, oh my gosh, I'm always revamping my portfolio.
I know.
But if you've got one, send it to me in the private chat, and then I'll share the screen.
I could just send you what the live site is right now because I don't
Okay,
like it's so new. I haven't yet put it in the
cool,
portfolio.
cool.
But one thing to what you just said that I'm starting to try to do is like
Mhm.
either develop a subdomain on my main site where I could just
Yeah,
have like a backup version of this is how it looked before
such a
anything
great idea.
and then just link
Yeah,
that off in my portfolio. But the I say I guess with this particular site, I'm not too worried about them changing anything because this has been a client where I redid their previous one and they pretty much
gotcha.
kept it exactly how it was. Because I guess the
Mm,
process that we walk through, we talk about like why we're making particular like decisions that we're doing,
mhm.
and then once everything was like approved in that sense, it's just like, yeah, this is why we're
Yeah,
keeping certain things the way it is and that type of stuff. So I've never had an issue with them in particular trying to change anything, and usually if they want to
right.
change, they'll just ask like, hey, we're trying to think about doing this. What do you think? We have a little discussion about it, see if it makes sense or not. So
Mm,
not worried about this.
okay.
Maybe others, but not particularly with
Yeah.
this one. Let me.
So so would you say then, as you're looking for that, would you say then that after you're done, so there's some designers, because I don't want to maintain people's websites because I don't want to be identified as a web designer, right? So I'll do it and then hand over everything. I'll hand over the keys, and usually most of my most of the designs I've done has been in Squarespace, right? So
Right.
I'll send them everything. This is how you do this. This is how you do. This is how the whole thing works. Send you off into the world now. It's a whole brave new world. Do what you want, but I'm here to
Right.
consult if there's anything else. But then there are those who, because they have done so much custom development,
Mhm.
the client really doesn't know what to touch, and if they do, it's kind of like so the designer has the opportunity to be on retainer,
Right.
so that way it's not just one project and it's done. You have now built a relationship where it's like, hey, once a month or once a
Right.
quarter,
Right.
I'll come in, I'll audit your site, and we can tweak things here, or maybe it'll probably be once a week depending on how active the site is,
Right.
because now as a developer you're squashing bugs, and there are other things that you need to tweak. What side are you on? Are you on the I'm just going to
So
send you off, or
it
I'll
depends
stick with you?
on the project. So what I've
Mm,
over the years, what I've realized is like if it's a very small site and whatnot,
mm,
then I typically have it where, at the end of every project, I try to do a walkthrough with them just so they
okay,
understand this is where you go, this is where you do XYZ, this is how you edit certain things, blah, blah, blah. So every
okay,
person that I work with, I try to put them through that process so they still, they're empowered to know, wow, I could make this change and I could do this and I don't necessarily need to rely on.
right,
So in the smaller sites, they have that. They literally could refer back to it because it was a walkthrough of like everything that they would need to know
yeah,
for their website. When it comes to like
okay,
the bigger ones where it's more involved and stuff, I do still do that walkthrough,
mhm,
show them everything about their own site, but
okay,
then try to have it where, yes, we establish that sort of relationship where if they're interested in that site here, then I could
mhm,
come in, I could handle the backups, I could handle, making sure that every so
that's good.
often I'm checking for plugin updates and, well, not really themes because I don't, but yeah, so checking
Right,
for
right,
like, like the
yeah,
different updates of whatever needs, whatever compatibilities, that type of stuff, and just making
okay,
sure things are functioning. Do the same thing like you just said, an audit, yeah, every like few months or so. But it just
yeah,
depends
yeah,
on the actual client and where they are
mm,
that we would determine which is the best fit because not everybody's going to need necessarily that level of like site care, even though for a lot of
true,
people who if they want the hands off, where they don't have to worry about the back end because it really
mm,
scares them, then sure, yes, I will gladly do that because I don't have a problem just, being like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
let's see. what's here, what's there. Okay, cool. Fix this. All right, be on my way. So
Gotcha. Okay, so so we're gonna say that high school you were exposed to the web world, and I think that it first started out
mhm.
with I think for me in high school it was Photoshop. Adobe had no idea what Photoshop was, so you're talking about the '90s. So just
Right.
imagine how Photoshop looked then,
Yeah.
um, and the gray boxes, right? Everything was in gray, the blue because there's no windows, right?
Hello.
The, yeah. So it did that for me. But then in college, you said, okay, and I think hair care is still like I think there's now another wave, right? I want to say so. It's kind of like yeah, or did it ever? I don't know if the wave ever.
Yeah, it never
Yeah, it kind
disappeared.
of just consistently started to emerge from I guess when we were back in school. There's just this resurgence of natural hair care, right?
Mhm.
So it was then that you weren't just trying to figure out how to create content. You
Mhm.
said that I want to make sure that the content looks aesthetically elegant. Okay, I'm going to pause here because one thing that I remember about you is fond memory is the BSCF Black Student Christian Forum back in the day, and you created a shirt. If my memory serves me correctly, it was a black shirt with
Yeah.
a tape. Do you still have that
I
shirt?
sure do. I should go try to find that shirt. I still
Should
have
about right. So
it.
with the splash
The same
colors, right? It
picture.
was so cool. Now, mind you, the reason why I think this really stuck out is two reasons. First, it takes a lot to impress me, right? So when I saw your design, I said, "Oh, it's a minimalist." Would you say that you're a minimalist designer?
I teeter more on the
Yeah.
minimalist side. There have been
Okay.
some projects that push me to be like, okay, but I
Yeah.
prefer
Yeah. That you had to
minimalist.
really
Yeah.
so that stuck out, and then just the idea of taking the visual, so this is what we're going to talk about next, taking the concept. I think it was about praying, right, pushing forward. I think it was something
Something.
like
It
that,
was
yeah.
something.
But I think because I think that if my memory serves me correctly, we were like in a meeting and we were coming up with a name or whatever, but you came up with that design. I said, okay, this is good. I usually don't say that. I'm just
Well,
like,
thank you.
this is
Thank you.
here's what really got me though. I think I did the one for last year's or like one before that, and it was terrible. The point is, I don't think that there's anybody else that took on the mantle. So I would consider like back then, you would have been like one of those hidden designer gems. Listen to me. If you would have just said, I will do, like, I just think about some of the things that I did. It was like, oh my gosh, if Sasha was, if
Listen,
she
I
just
look
did
back at
this,
some of my work in early years and I'm like, oh Lord.
what is this
No,
mess, right?
I hope nobody ever
And
sees
people
that.
and people rocking it like it's all good. And you look back and like, this ain't it. So let's talk about this because you have this particular style. And it's a style that I gravitate towards, right? I look at that like when I think about the shirt then, and even some of the styles that you're doing right now. And I'm gonna pull up this website.
Wow.
uh it reminds me of like a a Behance dribble kind of account, so for those of you guys that don't know, those are websites where you would usually find artists, especially graphic design artists, maybe some web too, who are uh displaying their work. Pretty much it's an online portfolio. I think Dribble is that still like the most coveted one where you have to get an
Yeah.
invitation, kind of like
Yep.
Clubhouse right now, in order
Yeah,
to do
you
it.
definitely still have to do the invites and the
Yeah.
whole process of like, yeah, they're still.
They're still uppity, right?
Mhm.
I don't have a. You got a Dribble account yet? I'm pretty sure you got a Dribble
Yeah, I
account.
have one.
I
I
don't. Yeah,
actually
of course
just
you do.
randomly got two more invites and was like, let me just see who
Yeah.
people who needed the thing. But I
See.
realized every so often they do them. So if you don't have
Yeah.
one, the next time, let me know. Cause
Listen, for those of y'all that are watching, drop a comment and say me.
right?
Dribble me. And Dribble is with three B's, I think, right?
Yeah.
It's three B's.
Uh-huh.
Dribble, and just me Dribble, and we'll connect you with Sasha. But your stuff got to be on point though. Your
Yes.
stuff can't be all wishy washy because Dribble has a particular caliber of artist, creative standards. Okay, so let's talk about this idea of using WordPress. You,
Mhm.
you found the niche. You said, okay, it's hair care, natural hair care, Afro
Right,
centric
right, right.
hair care. Like we're in that side of things, right? And then you put it in a platform. Okay, it's WordPress, but now for you, and I think I froze for a second there. Am I still? Am I back? Okay, I think I'm back. Okay, I think I'm delayed a little bit. So not only that, but you found the niche, you
Mhm.
found the platform, but now you said "But that's not enough. I need to have the design. It needs to look aesthetically pleasing, and we can kind of say we can argue that that is where your your decision to
Mhm.
lean into the design side of creating content was not born,
Right.
but you
It
received
like
it and you
woke
said,
up.
okay,
Yeah, it woke up at that moment.
yeah, okay,
Like,
okay,
oh,
right. Let's talk about your process then, right?
okay.
Because you have a very particular process in how you design certain things for clients. What does that look like? And when while you're doing this, I'm going to go ahead and let's see if we can share. Um, let's see.
The
No, we're not going to share
platform
the
that
site
always
yet.
feels very nervous, like when you work on a project and it's like it's out in the wild and the client knows, but then you're just like, oh Lord, I gotta
Right,
do
right, right,
oh boy,
right.
I'm so scared. Cause there's always like things in my mind where I'm like, oh, this still needs to
Mhm.
be done. This still needs to be done.
Yeah,
Which this
yeah, yeah,
one
yeah.
is there's still things that we're tinkering with, but for the most
Uh-huh.
part, we just have the site live so that people could still kind of come in and access it for now, but there's still things
Okay.
I'm like working on. So y'all go easy on me, okay?
We so we're gonna show it, and I'm gonna try to refresh it because I like the splash page that comes up just before the actual site shows
hmm
up. So like just kind of take us through the process. And I know it might be a little bit challenging because we don't have like a
So
before and after.
you wanna hear about I guess what do you call that? The brand inside or more so the specific to the website.
Let's do the whole thing. Yeah, let's start with because
So
one of the things that you talked about in building the first, your first WordPress site was there was a strategy behind it. So we're
so
gonna do that and then kind of talk about your mission,
okay.
which is helping people to take their stories and
Right.
visually, display them. So let me see if I can refresh this site just so that they can see the splash page. Hopefully that'll work. Look at that.
There it is.
That's tight. That's tight. So yeah,
And
just kind of
so
walk us through.
really quickly. So before, as a caveat, when I first started, I did not really emphasize on strategy at all. That
Okay.
kind of came later on in
Mhm.
years after I realized, wait, a lot of these things would be so much easier if we had just worked on it with some strategy. Anyways, so
But
typically,
hey, but that's a good point.
right,
That's a good point. How many of us as designers, we start off with the product first, and then it's kind of like uh, it's more
it's
organic
natural,
where we say, okay, yeah, let's slap a theme up first,
right,
and
right.
then work our way backwards. And what you're saying is that actually starting with a roadmap is a little bit more easy to kind of okay, cool, cool.
So when I first had that blog, and I mean, there are a few people from Andrews that might remember the blog, Afronically You. I used to have that
I remember that. Yeah, yeah.
old domain, Afronically, the letter u.com. It's still there. Obviously, now it looks a little janky because I have not kept up with it. But when I first started, it was one of those things where I kind of just was like, oh, I know I needed to write posts. And it wasn't even really a blog where I was trying to say, oh, I want it to become a thing where people, in the wild are finding it. It was more just
Mm,
I wanted to share my journey, my hair journey, and kind of
yeah.
document what I was going through. And I remember
Hmm.
a lot of people were doing that. So I figure, hey, let me do that. And afterwards, I kind of it was just more just writing the blog posts and then
Hmm.
really saying, hey, okay, let me design how the featured images, let me design whatever images are going to be in for the for the different like posts or wherever they're going to put them. um,
Right.
then it kind of became all right, we need a actual brand, so I would tinker with how I was going to do the logo for that, and change a few times over the years. At first
Hmm.
it was always different silhouettes of like me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
different ways of how I was doing that. I was still trying to figure out like, I don't know if I like certain things, whatnot. And
Right.
then I did I guess after that, it kind of became like, okay, we are now doing YouTube. So yes, there's
Mhm.
a rogue YouTube channel out there. Y'all don't go looking now, but it's out
It's out
there that
there
needs
now in the
some
wild.
videos, for it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it, through those whole process, that's where I was like, okay, I
Yeah.
really enjoy this process of doing the design for creating the
Mm,
blog post, and I really like that I could go in as much as I was able to at that point in the back end
yeah.
of a theme and try to figure out where the HTML is hiding in the PHP and then fix it,
Hmm.
tweak a little something. And
Right, right, right,
then
right.
from there, I that's when it started the mad hunt of like I would find, I guess, frameworks and stuff that you could
Mm.
really use for WordPress. And
Okay,
that whole
okay.
thing just opened up to now I'm at a point where when I do work with a client, previously I used to, just like
Mm.
I said, not necessarily focus on the strategy at first. So when I was first doing with clients, I didn't necessarily do strategy right away. It would kind of come up afterwards when I realized like, wait,
Yeah.
maybe we should have, this very intense discussion about XYZYZ. But now
Right,
I
right.
definitely do the process where it's like, all right, you're onboarded. First thing is going to be a nice kickoff strategy
Yes.
kind of call. We're going to really sit here. What are your goals?
Hmm.
What are you trying to accomplish? Why do you need this? Who are we speaking to? All these different things. And then we
That's
get
so
really
good.
down and dirty into it. And then
Hmm.
from there, I could say, okay, if this is the goal, if this is who we're trying to reach, if these are all the different things, then now research and do the pull up whether, okay, so if it's the brand, do the research and then actually figure out, okay, this is what we need to craft for said
Right.
audience and for you. And then if it's the website phase, okay, could pull data now and say, all right, this is how
Hmm.
the architecture of the site needs to look, this is how it needs to flow, because this is most likely where people are trying to go to first, and this is what they want to sign up and all these different things. So yeah, I've
So what
definitely.
I'll do is
Mhm.
I want to do this. So I want to actually chart your path to what you actually do, and then I want us to see what does that look like for now. Your goal of focusing on helping women to tell their particular narrative from their
Mhm.
experience. So let's do this because I think it might help for those who are kind of just like, okay, so this is great, what does this look like in real time, or not, well, maybe not real time, but in real life? Well, hey, we could, so what does this look like? So let me go ahead, let us, I'm gonna switch over here, I'm gonna share another screen. This is going to be one that shows Jamboard,
Okay.
and I am going to say, so what would you say is the core begin? Would you say that websites is like the primary way that you help, or the primary platform or tool that you use to help people to share their narrative? Or it may not be, but what's the or you can just give me the list, like your top
I'd say,
three, or
okay,
like.
so I definitely say absolutely their websites,
Mhm.
um, their social media platforms, of course, and then
Okay.
I'm finding a lot more of them are either trying to go into either speaking or into teaching.
Okay.
So
So would you say coaching?
yeah, I guess you could just put that in as coaching.
Okay. I'll
Yeah,
put
those would be
coaching
the
and
top three,
teaching.
I'd say.
Okay. So I'm going to say that these two here would probably be platforms, right?
Hmm.
And then these
Like
two
personal.
here, yeah, probably like the what would we say? Because they're not necessarily industries. I guess teaching is considered an industry, but there are different kinds of coaching, right? My G looked like Y. Don't worry about my writing; it sucks. So, but it's like, because there are different kinds of coaching or personal development or different types
Right.
of things to teach. So, but we'll keep it general. Would you say that websites and social media? Some people call this social media 1.0, and social media really is really like Twitter and all of that is like 2.0. Things like Clubhouse, that might be like a 3.0 now.
Oh,
I don't know. We'll see.
definitely.
So, out of these two, which one would you say that you probably do the most of, or does it typically come in a package?
Yeah, so I would say mostly the websites, and that's, as you
Okay.
mentioned, that is definitely something I'm trying to do more of, because I find, when people do like a piece here, a piece there, and it's not
Yeah.
necessarily cohesive, I find
Yeah.
that in the long run, that's not the greatest. So for me personally, I
Hmm.
prefer to do the full thing where we're walking through all of it: brand
Yeah.
strategy, branding, your website, whatever digital like presence, really
Hmm.
fleshing all of that out together. And
Yeah.
yeah, I guess in ultimately it's building longer term relationships, because I just find in the end
Okay.
that works better. Like the more a person actually
Mm.
understands what your goals are, what you're trying to accomplish, and then they could really
Hmm.
help you craft that. Not to say it has to just be me alone. Obviously, I could have a team or something, but you get what I mean? Like, the
Right.
more you're
Right. Right.
specific with like
Hmm.
one entity that really understands it and you go from there, the better I
Yeah.
find, it works out in the long run. So,
Okay, cool. So now that we have websites, so this is great. Let's say now somebody says, "Okay, I came across your services. I have, an idea, something that I want to do. Can you help me? What's the first thing that you go through with them? So we'll
so
we'll take them on the journey.
right.
Step number one
The
is what?
first step is they fill out a project inquiry form from my website.
Okay.
Second, after that, depending on, obviously what they put in the form will help me vet whether or
Mhm.
not this is like a serious inquiry, or if it's just like, all right, I don't know what's going on here. But
Right, right, right.
so if it's a okay, looks like I could use more information, I usually
Yeah.
invite them to either a call, depending on exactly
Okay.
what's in there, and then from the call, again, finding out more info as far as okay, really what are the goals, what's those pain points right now that you're trying to address, that
Hmm.
type of stuff. Just getting some preliminary info so I could actually get a more rounded picture of like, okay, what exactly do you
Gotcha.
need, and then from that I would just send over typically a proposal based upon what
Okay.
we've spoken
Okay.
about and what we have already I've already seen them fill out in the form and that type of stuff.
Hmm.
Curate that into a simple proposal where I hand it over to them, have them look it over. If they,
Okay.
decide to move forward, then we start the onboarding process. If it's something where they're like, okay, I'm not necessarily ready for this right now, tell them thank you for at least being willing to speak with me and give me the opportunity, whatnot. And then sometimes I will do follow-ups, like later on, just to see where they're at still, if maybe now is a
Mm.
better time that they would like to approach this.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't. But okay, so now we're moving into like it became a yes. It becomes a yes, then I typically let them know they could expect their onboarding process
Hmm.
email in maybe in a few. So usually depends on what I'd have to set up, but that could just be maybe just like at max about 2 days. And then once
Okay.
everything is set up, they usually get an official welcome email that details like literally everything that they need to know. So that would include stuff like
Gotcha.
when's my office hours? How do you get in touch with me? How do you use your portal? How do you access the portal? What's your
Mm.
first steps like, as far as like homework, whatever, like a whole
Mhm.
bunch of different things
So
you
you're
need
telling me
access.
you're telling me, Sasha, that there are people that when you go to the onboarding phase, they're
Mhm.
like, this is cool, but okay, I'll come back to you. That's great. And they signed the proposal yet, and
No, no.
then
So
you
yeah,
onboard them.
yeah. Once the proposal is signed and you are like, yes, we're actually moving forward. You
Okay.
sign contract, pay the invoice, that type of stuff. Then you move into the onboarding phase. If after the proposal
Okay.
you're just like, yeah, I'm not quite ready for it, that's when it becomes like, okay, all right, we will take a look at
Gotcha.
revisit this maybe in a few months to see if you're now at a place where you're ready, or if it's
Okay.
again something you're not prepared for, maybe there's a referral that I could refer you to, or something.
Gotcha.
But
So
anything
did I
once
have this
the
backwards? Do you
proposal
send them
is
like the welcome email and then you send them the onboarding, or is it
yeah,
like,
so the
hey, so
follow-up
here's some things that you got to do, and then you send them the official welcome?
right. Yeah. So it's
Okay,
the onboarding is just literally they move directly into the welcome email, and then
gotcha,
once they've gotten that, that means their portal is ready, everything is ready, and now it's just like we're moving through moving through the project. So that typically
gotcha.
includes first order of business, which is we try to schedule out or kickoff call, or just to do plan for the what do you call that, the
Mm,
strategy intensive.
okay,
And once we have that, then it's more so me going back to, all right, I got all this information from them, sometimes, okay, let me back up real quick. Sometimes for the strategy portion, I would have them do it where they could fill it out as a workbook.
Okay.
I am learning that while the workbook is great and it's very, it's intense and whatnot, not
Hmm.
everyone processes the workbook, I guess, in the way that I would have anticipated. So I'm,
Gotcha.
as we know, we learn and we grow, we iterate as we do each one and we come up on something new. So I've
Right. Right.
now
Right.
iterated it to the point where I'm like, okay, when the strategy portion is happening, instead of doing the workbook version, I'm just going
Hmm.
to do it as the actual, like, the more so just the workshop. Just keep it at the workshop and, go through that stuff with them there, and then do the other portion of it on my own. Like I still would have, but I just found it's a bit easier for them because some of the times they'll fill out the workbook and then they weren't sure, like, oh, I'm not really sure what this part was, or, and then so I'm like, if we work through it together first,
Mm-hmm.
it makes it a
Yeah.
bit easier. So
And then after you do the workshop, when does the design part come in? I find this so
oh,
intriguing because there are a lot of people who are like, as soon as somebody says yes, I'm just going to go ahead and design. And
so
so far, there are about 8 steps right
after
now just to
so
groom them
after
into.
after this workshop, and this is now me officially collecting like everything, right? Like all the
Yeah.
things that I could ever need to know up front, like about the business, the goals, behind the scenes, whatever. I take that information and that's where I start research. Like, okay, who's the
Okay.
audience, who, or in depending on if it's a site, who's the users, like what do they do, what do they like, all these different things, what are they looking for? Because at the end of
It's
the day,
supposed to be a magnifying glass, by the way. I'm struggling right
at
now.
the end of the day, we
Struggling.
are having users, right, who are
Mm.
coming in. They're looking at the brand not because, oh, it's what us the owners like, but because it's something that will actually attract them and speak to them, right? And
Right.
so with the research process, I'm making sure
So
that,
good.
okay, we're creating stuff that it's good for them, and
Hmm.
then it really will help the owners, of course, meet the goals that they're intending to set up.
Yeah.
So after that little research phase, I guess you could say that's with part 8, like 8B or something. And
Yeah.
then after
We'll
that
keep it.
part is
We'll still
done,
make it 9.
right? After that part is done, then it's just, presenting like preliminary data, like, okay, I've uncovered this type of stuff. Based on
Mm.
that, here is a draft, I guess, of like your strategy plan,
Okay.
right? Like
Right.
this is how you need
So
to,
it's like
this is
a
what we're saying
report.
you're gonna sound like, this is how you're saying your mission, your vision is, this is how you
Right.
want to make sure your tone of voice is when you're writing in whatever market and blah blah blah, all these different things.
Mm.
Um
So it's like a brand design brand kind of a report analysis, maybe.
just
Um,
really the blueprint of like how this
blueprint.
need to go forward, right? So
Yeah, I like that.
once they have that because ultimately that guide there
Okay.
really helps to govern everything else that's coming. And
Okay. Let me back up here because you definitely hit a point. Hold on. So this is an actual blueprint. It's not a report. This is good. Listen, people who are looking to try to get this stuff done, y'all better listen to this. All right. So um we're gonna say that this is a blueprint. I don't know what possessed me to think that I knew how to draw, but
well, you're doing a pretty good job. I
well,
can see
thank
from
you. So we're gonna put here blueprint. I'm definitely running out of space though. And then we got so that would be step 10. And then after that, what do you then do?
so after that process, that's when we could now get into, all right, we're gonna design. So the design phase, whether that's if we're working on a brand, then actually craft out identity system, with that, of course, your primary logo, secondary, whatever, all the different pieces that has to come with that. Or
Yeah.
if it's going straight into a website, the blueprint right after the blueprint would have just been like, okay, what's our actual information architecture, right? So how is the sitemap looking? All that stuff you already explained up,
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
the earlier part of this video. Just how is it going to function? Where do they need to go first? That type of stuff. From
Okay.
there, really, it's just getting approval. Like,
Site.
okay, are
Yeah.
we in agreement that this is the direction that we are heading in? And
Right.
from that, if all is good, then we move forward into it being a we're going to officially develop, if it's a website, develop the site now based on what we have determined as the architecture. We have the made the wireframes, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
for me, I don't necessarily do prototypes as much, because I kind of try to do the what kind of wireframe is it? It's not necessarily high fidelity. If that's It's kind of like somewhere in between where it's enough info for them to kind of
Yeah,
make
we
sense.
call them mid fidelity, where you kind of strip away the colors, right? And it's just kind
Right,
of just graying air
right.
blocking.
But it still
Yeah,
like shows them like the texts to some degree, depending on if they already have that. And
yeah.
usually with the content, by the time we get into official like designing and developing, I usually try to have the content from them as well. So I try
Okay.
to make sure that they understand, like, hey, I'm gonna need your content, all your copy, your pictures, whatever, all that type of stuff, because
Mm-hmm.
how can I design, especially a website, without that stuff, right? So
Right. That's one of the biggest challenges is uh people think that, you're just going to create everything. It's like, no, I'm now going to have to hire a photographer because you don't have any visual assets.
oh, and see,
And,
right.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and see with that too. So depending on the client. Like, for example, the previous site that I showed, they already had like working images because it literally was just a rebrand. So they weren't starting from scratch. So they already had certain images, that type of
Nice.
stuff. So that made
Right.
that process a bit easier. If it's someone
Okay.
where they'll need photos, especially if it's a personal brand and you're gonna
Hmm.
need photos and stuff, I usually sometimes will walk them through as well, like a photo guide, like, hey, this is the kind of pictures that you might want to take because this will work well for what we're crafting. Give them examples just so it's like, all right,
Yeah.
this is what you need. This is how you do it. You could walk with this to your to the photographer, so they have an idea. Like, all right, this
Yeah.
is what we need to come away with.
So as far as budgeting is concerned, so like when you are now creating this, and this is crazy because we hit step 14, and once again, I want people to
It is so
understand.
complicated, right? The whole
Listen here.
process, it doesn't seem so crazy, but I guess now looking at it written out, it's just like, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, so maybe it's just because of the way that I try to map it, but it really is a
It's
journey.
a lot.
So yeah, because as a designer, we do this stuff intuitively. After a while, sometimes you got to be trained to do this. Let me back up. Not everybody knows how to do this thing, but after a while, though, especially if you're around the right people, you get the right training, you
Mhm.
will understand how to you start off with, like, the kickoff call doesn't go yet. You onboard them so that there are things that you don't have to explain to them before the hey, okay, here's what we're going to do. They already know that. Get that out the way, right? So I love the fact that you already have that before even, the first official welcome email. It's like, okay, here's some stuff. Let's get this stuff done. And then it's like in the email as well, or well, technically in the email would be the onboarding, but
Right. Yeah.
it's kind of getting all of that stuff kind of out the way. This is great. So I hope people can see this who aren't in the design world to understand what it takes, because it's not just I have a design or I have a website that I want to do, and the designers that are like Sasha-Shae are people who aren't just, okay, cool, let me just go ahead and design a profile for you.
Yeah. No.
No, we're talking about an overhaul really of the entire vision, and
Right.
then the strategy that is going to drive what is your end game? What is your
Right.
goal? And she does that in like step 8 and step 9, right? Where it's like doing the research. And people don't really get that sometimes, where it's like, yeah, we're asking you all of these questions because number one, in step 1, we trying to vet you. So we're sending an inquiry to see whether or not you have the budget,
Mm-hmm.
how serious this project is.
Right.
We have to ask the questions first.
Right.
Honestly, and Sasha, you can probably vouch for this. When we were first starting out, though, we took any and everything.
Sure did.
Come
Sure.
on,
Sure
get
did.
it. Come
You
on.
look at things, you're like, oh, you got to keep the
Yeah,
lights on. Yep. No shame.
yeah. And
But
then we started to
with that,
evolve.
you learn
Yeah,
like, yeah, actually, there are limits to what I want to actually accept, because that saying that they
Exactly.
say about like sometimes the people who want the world for like a certain
Yeah.
price point, it's true. I've definitely
Yeah.
seen that. So you quickly learn where you have to, well, for me, this has been my journey for sure, having to learn to like
Yeah.
value my work and be more confident
Absolutely.
about it, because for a long time I was like severely underpriced. And I mean, my husband will
Yeah.
say I'm still very underpriced, but it's a work in
I
progress where
I
I had
challenge you
to.
for 2021. I challenge you for 2021 to add a zero to whatever your price is right now.
Ooh, child.
Add it because you have the capacity, not just because of what I've seen before and what we just kind of went through right now, but you have more design, a higher design aptitude than I do, and you also have been in the game more than I have. I think when I was still at Andrews, I was doing more like focus on like copywriting,
Yeah.
and I had no business being the PR person doing all of those posters. You probably got upset at someone like me, like, what is this on the who did this? I did. Guilty as charged, so so like you've got the experience, you've gotten the what we call, right, the commensurate
Yeah,
experience.
but you see,
You've been
I was gonna say
so
with that too.
mhm,
I think and this be a word of advice too to like any creative out there, because I think
yeah,
sometimes we get into our heads a lot. Because for me, when I first like left, like finished school and whatnot, I was of the
yeah.
mindset like, well, I don't have a BFA, quote unquote, so therefore,
Mm.
I'm not really I can't really claim the title of designer, right?
The imposter syndrome. Yeah.
Right. Foolishness.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, oh, well, I don't really have like internship experience doing whatever. Like really my experience was my blog, like
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it was just like all these different things that
Yeah.
I would tell myself, like, oh, I guess I could, I can't really say I do XYZ because the only
Right.
real experience I have is either my own stuff or like doing stuff for the church, which
Mm. Hmm.
I used to do a lot, like the flyers and different stuff for them and whatnot.
Right.
But I like for me at the time I was like discounting because I was like, oh, that's just people who it's like they know you, so of course they would quote unquote like vouch for you. So that's what I would tell
Yeah.
myself, and I was just like, oh, I can't really say I know how to do this or whatever.
Mhm.
And like I said, it's been a long journey, but
Yeah.
I
Of
finally at a
course.
point where I'm just like, what are you talking about? You actually do pretty good
Yeah.
work. Like, stop
Hmm.
playing yourself and
Hmm.
actually own it. So, with that being
Yeah.
said, anybody listening, yeah, just do not, make your mindset get the best of you, because trust me, it will happen. But it's really important to recognize like what your talents are, what your skills are, and of course, by God's
So good.
grace, He continues to pour into you, and you just take it
Yeah.
and run. Don't
Listen
fall,
here.
right? Don't
Listen.
fall. When
You.
you see
Hey.
a
You
fall,
are
get up quick and
preaching.
run. Okay,
You are
don't be
preaching
like
right
me.
now. I think every creative goes through or suffers with, on some level, the
Yeah.
imposter
Oh
syndrome,
yes.
on some level. And I think that if you were still suffering with that, you would not have, this is we're just at step 14 here, you would not have such an intentional process to make sure that you are not only getting providing value for the client, but you want to make sure that you are getting
Mm-hmm.
higher ticket or valuable clients for yourself. It's work that you want to enjoy doing as well. I think that it's so key. Man, we probably one day would just need to have a whole discussion on just how do you reframe the imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
right, into what I read in an HBR article called the learning credibility tension.
Mm-hmm.
Blew my mind when I realized,
Have the link, or can
embrace
you
it.
send that to me?
I sure will. I will find
Uh,
it and send it to you. The learning
because I
credibility
definitely
tension,
want
where
to
they
tap
actually
into
talk. Yeah, because
that.
when you realize that the feeling of like, oh my goodness, that's okay. But
Right.
when you take the, oh my goodness, what am I even doing in this room, to the level of, I don't deserve to be in this room, that's when you
Right.
start to devalue yourself, and you
Right.
start saying, well, it costs 50,000, but I can do it for 15.
Right.
You start starting to, you're saying no to the you're saying no for the client as
Yeah.
opposed to, and so, man, so you really hit it on the money.
Just hurt your own self, in the
Yeah.
end. So it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, trust me, it's not a pretty place to be. Been there,
It's
done it.
not.
still working my way fully out of it,
I
but
think I am too. Yeah, I think that on some level we all are. Everybody that's in that coaching, creative, design, on some level, even if you're a manager, even if you're not an entrepreneur or solopreneur, but you're actually doing, you're in corporate America, and you're managing somebody else's portfolio or somebody else's business. I do think you're a creative director. There's that level, but man, the people that we respect the most are the individuals who they may not even be the best, like top tier, but the confidence that they have
right,
in
right,
in the in at least the core skill set that they have, and they know how to do that very well. We respect them.
yeah, yeah,
So absolutely. So
absolutely
let's
agree.
do this. Let's do this. So we're hitting almost an hour. Can you believe time flies when we're having fun?
Yeah.
So let's do this. So we had the wireframing,
I
right? So
said
I'm going to
there,
start.
the wireframe. That was the
Yeah,
last part.
so we're gonna start there, where now you start doing like high fidelity, no, not high fidelity, like low fidelity,
Well,
well,
no,
mid fidelity
yeah,
wireframe.
mid, and from there I just jump straight into like, all right, if this is what it is, they have an understanding of
Mhm.
exactly where things would be laid out, and what copy we're trying to put where. Then we're
Okay.
literally just jumping straight
Oh,
into
that's
like the actual design
that's good.
because
Okay. So is the copy side, is the copy piece different from the wireframing, or do you kind of put all
um
of that together?
yeah, so what I try to do is if it's for a website, I try to have them do a sort of content workbook from like before we even get to this wireframing
Good.
piece, just so I have
Yeah.
that. So I have an idea like how the copy looks. And I think even now there are certain ways I'm going to try to tweak that too, because I want to get to a place where, let's say, even while I'm wireframing, whatever exact copy,
Hmm.
it's like broken down in a way where like, oh, so this is what you're saying your heading is. Okay, this is going to be here. Let's see how all this translates. So
Gotcha.
you will know
Yeah.
if you need to cut some or maybe add some or that type of stuff. Because,
Hmm.
and I can't stress this enough, the more we have the content up front, the better. Like it's so much easier.
It informs the design to an extent of the website. People don't see. Okay, so one of the challenges that I have as well is that you are expected to create this shell, but you don't know how much content that you're going to be given, and the amount of content given will determine whether or not should I have summary cards
Right. Or
or
actual long different intense sections. And
or a sidebar. And yeah, you're right.
right, because even right now, I wouldn't even say the content workbook is 15. I'd actually put that right next to 14 because they kind of,
Oh,
at that
okay,
point, you're kind of together just because when I look
okay,
at it, it helps me really see, like, okay, so this is what you
okay,
have. This is how the
gotcha.
wireframe is looking, and then we could really try to figure out at that point whatever changes really need to happen to it. But
Yeah,
that's where I'm saying, even with that, I need to figure out a better way of even when they get the way how the content workbook is presented, that when it comes back, I still know like this one specifically is the heading and stuff and whatnot, and based on the wireframe. But hey,
gotcha.
still in development. So
Hey, it's always fluid, right? Like I'm using HoneyBook right now for client, not really onboarding, but kind of the funnel of kind
mhm,
of taking them through inquiry all the way up to like just the through the proposal to the onboarding to like the end of the project, and always kind of tinkering around with it, trying to
right,
figure out the best way to. So you're absolutely right. On quite frankly, if you are not working on your process,
right, yeah,
then either you don't have enough clients
right.
or yeah. So
Yeah, it's like I'm constantly having to be like, okay, I learned something new during this
yeah,
project. Yes, let me make a note of that to go back and tweak this part. So absolutely
yeah,
always trying to do that with any and everything that I learn. So after
absolutely.
this, I guess this piece here, it's really just we have the full actual live design. So I do that usually on a staging
Okay.
site or something where I just have a pull of their, if it's a existing site, I pull their
Hmm.
existing site into a staging environment. Or if it's a brand new
Gotcha.
site, then it would just be like, all right, I set up a, I guess a demo area where I kind of just
Okay.
work on it behind the scenes, input all the actual like design, the layouts, everything based upon what we've already said as far as the information architecture, how the sitemap is supposed to be laid out, the copy
Yeah.
that we just had, how the wireframes are looking, all that stuff, put all that
Hmm.
together. Then it would just be, all right, everything is done there. So sending it off now for them to look at it, to see like, okay, is this looking how you actually had wanted it and stuff? Everything functioning how you expect it to.
That
Um,
is a hand. This is the
man.
handoff.
Oh man. Well, not the
Terrible.
handoff
Oh,
yet. This is
oh, it's
more
not
like
yet. Okay.
yeah, this is more like the them testing it. So this is, I guess you could say,
Oh, okay.
their testing
Cool. So
phase.
let's
I
do that.
want them to test it. I
Testing.
want us to test it.
Nice.
You know,
Okay.
everybody just make sure we're all still on the same page. Like, is this actually
Yeah.
looking how you want it, how you need it, everything working how it should? Anything I gotta swap? I don't know. Maybe there's an
Yeah.
image that you're just like, yeah, actually, I don't want that one anymore. Let me send you a new one
Mm,
real quick that we could, something, anything.
yeah.
Um, so that would happen in that kind of process. So that's, I guess, quality
Mhm.
testing and assurance, blah blah blah, that
Ah,
phase.
Q&A. Okay. Yeah.
And then once that's
We're
good,
QA.
and
Sorry.
yeah, once that's good, then we are just like, all right, cool. Now the handoff process is really like, okay, I try to schedule either a walkthrough video call with them to just
Okay.
again show them like, look, this is how you use your site, this is how you find XYZ, this is how you do this. Literally, it's kind of like, welcoming them to their new site, but as well serve as sort of a tutorial for them, customized to them.
Okay.
So I do that with them. And once that's done, it's
Hmm.
like, all right, yeah, we could launch party if you want to have a launch party, or like I'm still
Launch
working more
party.
on the launch side of things to really try to give everyone a nice like launch party thing, as far as like the graphics and whatnot that they could use for launch
Yeah.
partying. But that doesn't always happen just yet. I need to get my life together, right? So but yes,
At
that's
least you're aware.
usually that's usually
Yeah.
what happens, where they could, it's officially all of that's done, it's
Hmm.
launch, and then we could either have that discussion of, I try to, if it's a website, I try to offer a complimentary like 2 weeks where I'm still on, like, okay, just in case anything happens,
Right.
then we could quickly like look into it to make sure everything is back to how it should be. But
Right. Right.
beyond that, I just try to have a conversation like, hey,
Uh-huh.
since this is a bigger site or whatever, like based on the client relationship and what I already know their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish, we could now have
Hmm.
that discussion like, hey, do you want to step into having the site care, or all these
Mm.
different things.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's really the crazy process in a nutshell. But I
No,
I
this is great. This is great. So just to recap, so first somebody shows up with,
They're
they're a potential lead, and they find you, and you send them a questionnaire, really, to
well,
vet
it's not even
them.
I send them, that's literally on the website, so they could just fill it out for
Ah, so
themselves.
okay, so it's embedded in the site. Cool. Because some people they send it, yours is actually embedded in it already.
Yeah,
And then
but
from
they could
there,
pre-vet
mhm,
themselves even with that form, because certain
gotcha.
questions
Right.
that are on
Right.
it, they could pre-vet themselves.
Gotcha.
So
Some
they
some
could
might
fill
just
that
like
out.
leave the whole thing like, oh yeah, this is too much.
Yeah.
This is too much. So you kind of qualify your leads with that inquiry, and then you do the first call just to clarify what their needs are.
Right.
And then from there, you develop the proposal based on the inquiry and based on the follow up call, and then and I think this is a mixture 4 and 5 together. You send them, once they say yes, an official welcome.
Well, once they say
E-
yes, it's more they are, for sure, like I said, they're doing the contract, invoice,
Mhm.
that type of stuff. And
Oh, so that is part of the onboarding for like just
right. Yeah, so
dollars and cents, right? So you're now
I'm
kind of
gonna be
onboarding them
hard
to
to
just
work. I'm not gonna be like,
yeah,
oh,
hey,
all this, and it's like, Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Because I've learned,
We
yeah, we've learned that, stop,
being
stop.
shy, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that. So you onboard them. This particular onboarding is just for, not just for, but is really for getting paid. Like, this is how it works. This is what you need to do, and
And I
then
would
you
say,
send them the official welcome. Mhm.
the calls don't always have to happen. It depends again on how much
Right.
details I got from that inquiry, the
Yeah.
inquiry form. Because some people fill it out with so much details where it's like, okay, I got your
Hmm.
stuff. I
Hmm.
could actually just send you directly a proposal based on what you
Gotcha.
say, and
Gotcha.
if you want to move forward with that, boom. If you have questions, and I always say, like, if they have questions or something else that I could clarify for them, then
Hmm.
let me
Hmm.
know. And then, if we need to revise proposal, then cool. But
Okay.
calls are really just like, if it's like, all right, I really don't know what you're saying in this form. I
Yeah.
personally want just more info right now. So
Just following up.
call me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool. And so we're gonna breeze through the rest of these right quick. So you send them the welcome, the official welcome, and then you develop the portal for them. So this is like
Right.
where
The
they can
portal is
kind of check
already
in.
right. I guess 5 and 6
Okay,
kind of together, because the portal, by the time they
okay,
get the welcome, that's already set up.
got
So
them set up. Okay,
then they
cool.
access it, and
Hmm.
we schedule out our first, I guess, kickoff
Kickoff
first
call,
week
cool. Which is
call.
step 7.
Then from there,
Cool, great.
then we are doing that workshop. So the kickoff
Hmm.
call scheduling would be there, and then 8 would be the actual the call, right? The workshop. So we're doing it,
Okay,
we're working through everything together. From there, it goes
gotcha.
on down to the research, where I do
Hmm.
that on my own. Then I come back and
Hmm.
say, hey, this is everything that I've uncovered based on what we did in our workshop, and
Right.
what I've seen, you know, with all the research that's done. So here's your little
Hmm.
the blueprint, I guess you could say. And
Yeah,
then
it's right here. Yeah,
right from that, then it goes into, if we're doing an identity,
developing.
we're doing branding, we're gonna just go into designing the actual brand
Right.
identity system.
Then
If
we go to
not,
the
then
site
we
map.
would have just went straight into, we are now developing sitemap and the
Site.
information
Okay,
architecture.
gotcha.
From that, it is after we do
Agreement.
right after we do the sitemap, and everyone's like,
Hmm.
yes, this is how we want, and these are the pages we need, and blah blah blah. We agree on that, so we're gonna move on
Yeah.
now to wireframing, which I guess you could jump over to the other one. We
Nice,
jump over
nice.
to the wireframing slash, at that time, the content workbook that they previously got would have been
Right.
due around this time, just so when I'm drafting
Mhm.
wireframes, what was it, the mid-fi wireframes, I could say, like,
Yeah, I think it's
I
mid-5.
could
Yeah.
pull certain words, certain phrases that they already have, just to give an example. Like, look, this was what you wrote on your thing. This is how
Hmm.
that would look, kinda, on, the
Right.
thing, on the wireframe. And then
Hmm.
from there, it's just like, all right, we approve that, cool. So now let's move into real, actual design,
Creating the
slash
live site.
development of it. And
Gotcha.
from
I like the fact that you said development there, because I think that that needs to be added. So this is like the development phase, like putting coding and everything that's into it, which yeah, which I definitely did not like, yes, it's a live website, but yes, this is where you start doing the nitty-gritty of the work. But not just you, this is so not just development, but also the UI, right? This is also
yeah, that's where,
everything
yeah,
before
there's a
technically
whole
would be
thing
considered
to
UX.
right. Yeah,
Like
there's a lot of
here,
why slash
yeah,
dev
all
work
of
that
this,
happens.
all of this is UX.
Yep.
So for anybody that's like trying to figure out what is UX, it's all of the stuff that happens before the site is even takes shape
Right.
here. Um, and then I'm gonna breeze through these last four for you. So
Uh-huh.
then you start doing the testing or the quality assurance, right? Where you're just trying to figure out what are the I guess the iterations, right? We're like, maybe this color, maybe that color, so you have that
Oh,
whole
actually,
dialogue, and
not
then
even, because with the color stuff, that's all
mm,
squared away in that design development phase. Like, literally, by
okay.
the time
So the
even,
testing is really for functionality.
yes, by the time we
Okay.
get to that, it's literally just making sure that nothing's broken. Like, is it broken?
Nice. Okay.
Is it not? Okay, cool.
Okay. I'm gonna put that is it, or not is it, but what's broken.
Right.
That's such a key. So here's a good point for anybody that's listening to Sasha Say's process, and I think this is great. there's going to be a cutoff time when you no longer are bringing in or considering opinions.
Uh-huh.
That does not happen here.
Mm-mm.
All of that happens in this stage right here. 16 is, we're just looking for functionality. Does everything work the way that they're supposed to? Oh, well, I think I like this font. Like you gonna have to pay me to
Yeah,
change
it's
the
like
font
at this
because
point, no,
right.
that will be considered
Gotcha.
additional additional scope to project, and we could talk about
Right.
that after. But right
Like
now, we
that.
are focused on just this. That's it.
Yes, the
Nothing.
additional scope.
Mm,
Yes, scope creep is real, y'all. Y'all know it's man, scope creep is real. And then you hand it off to them. It's okay. Here it is. Here's the present. Here is your beautiful website. But you just don't hand it off. You also set a date to actually launch the actual
yeah,
site.
we have
Okay.
a decided date, and then we making sure we go live by the said date, and then with that,
Yay. And then you follow up.
do that follow up, and then
Okay,
that's
cool. This is great. This is a great process for anybody that is wondering, how do designers do what they do? Everybody's process is different, but there are some core things in each. There's some core things that need to happen for every designer, and I think that a lot of it, if not all of it, was hit in this particular process, including this one right here. Man, some of us mess up because we don't train our customers, our clients, to figure out. Okay, listen, net 30 or net 15 after you submit the proposal, my money's due. like,
Yeah, and
like,
it's
and we and-
important, like, to
yeah,
spell that stuff out, because
yeah,
of course, before I did not used to do that either, where it was just like, oh,
yeah,
I don't know, should I send the thing? And that's the next thing. Like, we need to
right,
stop being afraid of like the money conversation, because Lord knows I'm, that's still a work
yeah,
in progress.
yeah,
I'll
yeah, yeah.
I'll be afraid of it sometimes, but we have to get to that space where we're just like, listen, you're doing a
Let me
work,
tell
you
you,
need to be paid. It's really that simple.
yeah.
Like,
Let me
you
tell you
know.
what happened to me. I
So
think what happened to me was one incident that made me say never again. And I think it wasn't David C. Baker. There's another guy that talks about that's when you should change your pricing. When you just really you're just
yep,
like, oh my goodness.
never.
That is when you should say, you probably know this, right? I think we watch the same people, right? Chris Doe and now. Like, so right? They're like,
I'm
that's when you
like,
should
listen,
change it. Yeah,
when you get to that space, that's where when you just
yeah,
realize, wow, I did a whole lot of work, and I kind of felt like I gave stuff away for free. That's
yeah.
also an indication that, yeah, you need to raise your prices. But I was
And
gonna
change
say,
it right there.
yeah,
like right
I was
then and
gonna
there.
say as
Yeah.
well, when it comes to the proposals, I
Mm,
started doing where even in the proposal, I'm kind of giving them an idea of like what to expect. So I think
yeah,
in the ending of it, I kind of have it where I'm telling them like, hey, so if you agree with this and you want to
yeah,
to do it right now, all you got
yeah.
to do is this is you let me know how do you prefer, which pay scale you
That's it.
prefer to do. I'll
That's
send you
it.
the invoice and we
Yeah,
get started. But like I feel like once
immediately.
we set the expectation, it's
Hmm.
much easier for them to know that,
Absolutely.
oh look, oh, she wants to do either a non-refundable percentage off project price deposit, or she
Mm-hmm.
wants to do like what they expected. So it's not like, oh,
Yeah.
why are you sending me this invoice? Why is there an invoice? Like, no, we're
Right.
gonna start
Right.
work
Right.
unless
Yeah.
something, you committed
exactly.
to it. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. Good.
So,
Man, this is good stuff. So my last question for you before we wrap this up is, how does your vision for helping your focus on helping women dig deep to find their unique voice and to illustrate their stories beauty to transform others, how do you do that? So we see the process.
right. So
Now what does that look like?
I found like a lot of the people I tend to work with are women, and a lot of
Mm,
them especially are either coaches, bloggers,
mm.
consultants. And of
Yeah.
course with that, those are predominantly like service-based business, right? They're serving
Right.
other people. And I found for a lot of women, we have a tendency where we could shy away from our voices or stories. Like, I mean, I could speak for myself. Like, that's
Mm.
been me, where I've just hidden away. Again, imposter syndrome, it comes in all kind of forms, where
Yep.
it's like, oh, my story isn't isn't valid, or nobody's going to care about that, or whatever, whatever. And I've seen that with
Mm,
a lot of women, where even though they're doing amazing work, they're not as vocal necessarily about what
mm,
it is they know how to do and how they
mm.
really could help impact others.
Yeah.
And when we are branded in a way where, it's like you feel confident and good in what is visually representing you, I find that takes the pressure off sometimes for people to show up and be
Wow.
like, yeah, this is what I do. And then they don't
Yeah.
feel shame to be like, oh, I'm sending them to a website or a thing, and it's like, ooh, cringe. So for me, it's more of like trying to help them not only show up as the experts that they are, but as well really reminding them out there that, hey, we all have unique abilities, unique talents that we have been blessed with, and we need to stop shying away from them. And again,
Absolutely.
I can only really speak to it from the lens of my own personal experience, because that has been my story, where I have shied away from a lot of things and really just kept myself back from how much further I could have been, because you're either afraid or you're feeling ashamed, or I don't know, whatever the case was, right? The mindset.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
me, during the process, I really think it's important to help empower them as well, to understand that no, you're really great at what you do, and you need to show up,
Absolutely.
and you need to show out, and you need to just do it. And I guess through that process of me helping them do that, that also helps me as well. And I really quite like seeing, especially women just come alive and realize, wow, there's so many things that we could offer to this world. And yes, and not to say that I don't help men, but I just found that that's
Right.
mainly who I've worked with. So I really like seeing these women just see their visions and their wildest dreams come to life, and they from
Yeah.
that they could just propel and soar and do so much more stuff out there. So yeah, that's my jam.
That's awesome. Listen, Sasha, I wanna thank you for just taking the time to connect, and first of all, being
Thank you
transparent with the
for inviting me
process.
here.
Listen, your creative process is amazing, but not only that, but the vision, or really the mission, with making sure that women not only find their voice,
Mhm.
but the way that it's demonstrated, exhibited to the rest of the world is in a it's illustrated in such a way that they have confidence behind it. Saying it is one thing, but
Right.
then being able to display it for the world to see online or via social media or whatever platform, whatever medium that they choose that you can help them to build it on is totally is it's a different animal, it's a different beast
Right.
altogether. You're helping them to do both. You're awesome. And
Thank you.
listen, keep doing what you're doing, because people need to hear and to know that it's not too late.
Right. Yeah.
It's not too late. You are living proof of that.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So listen, guys, I'm so grateful that you were able to just come in, just listen in. If you missed the majority of this, go back, watch what how Sasha's aha moment, the woke moment in which she said, I think I am a designer. Go back and watch that. Go back and look at her process. I might have janked it up a little bit, but that's okay. Go back and look at that. And especially, remember, and this is just how we're going to end this thing. Remember that it is not too late to fulfill your purpose. Guys, I will see y'all later. Sasha, this can't be the last time. All
No,
right?
no.
Can't be the last time.
Yes.
All
Thank
right.
you guys.
Blessings. And stay on, Sasha. So, all right, because we're gonna end this thing. But all right, see y'all later.